Rain drummed softly against the mentioned windows that night. You sat by the piano, tracing your fingers across the silent keys, the air heavy with unspoken words. It had been 3 months since your marriage to Jun Jungkook, the man every rival feared, and every ally bowed to. But in this house, fear had a different face. It wore a wedding ring. You had learned to read him by silence. When he didn't speak, it meant the day had gone well. When he avoided your eyes, someone had paid for a mistake, and when he touched you rarely, unexpectedly, it wasn't romance, it was possession. You thought you were alone until the scent of his cologne cut through the air, woody, sharp, almost suffocating. He stood behind you, tall and quiet, his presence filling every inch of the room. Why are you sitting here in the dark? You didn't turn, you just kept staring at the empty piano keys. Because it's the only place in this house that doesn't feel like a cage. There was a pause, long, heavy. Then his reflection appeared in the piano's polished surface, his expression unreadable. A cage keeps things safe. Why? That's why I built one for you. You mean for yourself? A low chuckle left him not amused, but something darker. He circled around you and placed a small velvet box on the piano. Inside lay a diamond bracelet, heavy, expensive, gold. Wear it. You keep buying me jewelry like it will make me forget I'm lonely. It's not jewelry. His tone sharpened. It's a tracker. You froze. Your heart skipped. You were joking. Do I look like I joke wine? He stepped closer, fingers brushing your wrist. His touch was gentle, yet firm, like a warning, just as affection. He clasped the bracelet around you, and you could feel the faint hum of technology hidden beneath the metal. You don't trust me. I don't trust the world with you. The room fell silent again. Outside, thunder rolled like a distant growl. He wasn't yelling, wasn't threatening, and yet the air between you trembled with danger. You wanted to hate him for it, but when his thumb brushed the pulse on your wrist before letting go, you felt warmth bloom where fear should have been. Why do you care this much if you don't even love me? Who said I don't? Before you could respond, he turned and walked out, leaving the storm to echo his silence. He sat there for a long time, staring at the bracelet that blinked faintly under the dim light. A cage, yes, but it was the kind built by a man who would burn the wood to keep you breathing. The mansion had changed since that night of the rain. It was warmer now, not in temperature, but in feeling. Curtains that used to stay closed now welcomed morning light. The kitchen smelled faintly of vanilla tea and fresh lilies, things Chungu claimed he didn't notice but secretly arranged. 8 months had passed, you were 8 months pregnant, your steps slower but lighter, your heart both full and fragile. Chungkook had changed too, or perhaps he simply started showing the part of himself he had been hiding from the world. He still wasn't soft, but sometimes you had wake up in the middle of the night to find him sitting beside you, his hand resting protectively over your belly, whispering something in a language that wasn't meant to be heard. Words of fear, maybe, or devotion. That morning, Hannah came over, the only person bold enough to tease the wife of a mafia boss. She entered the mansion carrying a basket of strawberries. And that knowing smile that always reached her eyes. You look like a goddess wine. Jungkook must be losing his mind trying to keep you hidden from the world. He doesn't let me go anywhere alone anymore. Possessive or protective? Both. But I think that's just how he loves quietly, obsessively. You poetry for her, watching the steam rise between you. He still doesn't say much, but last night I caught him talking to the baby. He didn't even notice I was awake. The cold John Jungkook talking to a bump. He said he doesn't know how to be gentle, that he's scared of breaking something so small. Then he kissed my stomach. Hannah leaned back, smiling warmly. He might not know how to love the way others do wine, but you're the only person who's ever made him try. Her words stayed with you like a quiet truth you were not ready to face, because behind Jungkook's growing tenderness, there was still something unspoken, something he didn't want you to see fear. The kind that came from knowing love made him vulnerable. It happened one late afternoon. You were in Jungkook's office waiting for him to finish a meeting, your fingers absently tracing the rim of your teacup. That's when she walked in, tall, elegant, draped in designer silk that shimmered like temptation. Millie. Her beauty was the kind that demanded attention, and she knew it. She smiled not at you but through you. Oh, you must be wine. Her tone dripping sugar and wine. You are even prettier than I expected. No wonder he got distracted. You stood, your heart already beating faster, but you kept your voice steady. He's in a meeting, you can wait outside. Oh, darling, I don't wait for anyone, least of all for what used to be mine. Her words sliced sharper than they should have. You forced a polite smile, though your hand instinctively rested over your belly, protective, cautious. Then you must also remember that what's his, stay his. For the first time, her smile flickered just slightly, but she recovered quickly, stepping closer. He used to hate women who couldn't handle his word. Guess you are just an exception. Because of the baby, the silence that followed was cold, heavy. Then another voice cut through it, low, calm, little. You're right, you hadn't noticed him enter. He stood by the doorway, his black suit perfectly pressed, eyes locked on Millie with unblinking detachment. She's not like you. She doesn't need to handle my word because I would burn it to the ground before I let it touch her. Millie's smile faltered completely. Jungkook, you have changed. No, I just stopped mistaking poison for perfume. You watched as he stepped beside you, his hand sliding around your waist, not possessive this time, but grounding, protective. He glanced down at your belly for a brief second, then back at Millie. You will not come near my wife again or the child she carries. Millie swallowed her bravado, cracking for the first time. She tried to smile, but her voice trembled slightly. So, this is love now, cages and commands. No, his eyes softened as he looked at you. This is peace, something you could never give. Millie turned and left, heels clicking against marble until the echo disappeared. The room fell quiet. Jungkook stood there for a moment, staring at the door, then at you. His expression softened, but his jaw tightened like he was fighting the urge to apologize, yet didn't know how. You didn't have to say that. Yes, I did. She needed to hear it. So did I. That made him look at you finally, his eyes darkened, but not with anger, with something heavier, deeper. He brushed a strand of hair from your face and whispered almost to himself. You don't even know what you do to me. And in that moment, even surrounded by shadows, you realized Millie might have been part of his past. But you were the part he could never let go of. The house no longer felt like a home, it felt like a fortress. Guards stood at every entrance, the maids moved quietly, careful not to disturb you. Even the gardener avoided trimming near your window after Jungkook snapped once for unnecessary noise. He had always been controlling, but since your belly began to swell, his caution had turned into paranoia. You couldn't walk to the balcony without someone trailing behind. Couldn't pour your own water without a worried glance from him. At first, you protested, then you stopped. Because behind the rules and restrictions, you saw something raw in him fear. He wasn't afraid of you, he was afraid for you. That night, the rain came again, soft, steady, whispering against the glass. You couldn't sleep. The weight of the baby pressed gently against you, and the air was filled with that strange stillness that comes before dawn. When you turned, Jungkook was awake too, sitting up against the headboard, the dim lamplight carving shadows across his bare shoulders. He looked tired, the kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. You are not sleeping again. Every time I close my eyes, I see something happening to you, to the baby. You shifted closer, your hand finding his. His fingers were calloused, but they trembled slightly. Without saying anything, he placed his palm over your belly, tracing slow, absent minded circles as if memorizing every curve, every heartbeat. I'll destroy anyone who dares to touch what's mine. You smile faintly, brushing your thumb across his wrist. You can destroy the word Jungkook. Watch me if it tries to take you from me. He leaned down then, pressing his forehead to his stomach. For a moment, the man who ruled empire seemed small, just a terrified husband whispering promises to a life he hadn't yet met. You closed your eyes and let yourself believe him. The next morning began too quietly. We should have known something was wrong when the guards were called away. Urgent instructions from Mr. John. The maid had said you were alone for the first time in weeks, and the silence felt almost foreign. Then the bell rang. Millie stood at the door, drenched in politeness and fake warmth. She carried a bouquet of white roses, ironic, considering she had always hated them. Peace offering, she said with a smile too sweet to be real. I came to congratulate you properly. I suppose motherhood softens even the coldest hearts. You hesitated but stepped aside. Jungkook had been gone since dawn. Confronting her now would only make things worse. You led her into the living room, the marble floors gleaming beneath your steps. You didn't have to come. Oh, but I wanted to see for myself. Her gaze flickered to your belly. He really does care, doesn't he? All that obsession, all that control. How does it feel being worshipped and imprisoned at the same time? You set the flowers down carefully, jaw tightening. If you came here to provoke me, don't. Jungkook made his choice. Men like him don't choose, sweetheart. They settle until something better reminds them of what they lost. The air shifted sharp, cold. You turned away to keep your calm, but as you stepped near the staircase, something slick brushed beneath your heel. The faint scent of oil reached you a second too late. Millie's expression didn't change, just that slow, satisfied curl of her lips. Time fractured, your foot slipped, the word tilted. The walls you tried to grab shattered, scattering shards that caught the light like falling stars. Your scream filled the hall, then cut short as something went still, a horrifying, suffocating stillness. Millie's hand covered her mouth, her eyes wide, the perfect mask of faint shock. Oh no, why? But her voice was distant, fading. The last thing you saw before darkness closed in was the blur of white roses falling to the floor, petal stained with something that wasn't water. The maid called him when Jungkook arrived. The mansion smelled of roses and blood. No. He saw you first, still pale, your dress torn, your hair tangled across marble that should never have touched you. Then came the sirens, the blur of white uniforms, the taste of fire in the air. He didn't speak, not when they carried you away, not when Hannah clutched his arm, begging him to breathe, not even when the doctor's voice finally broke through the static. We couldn't save the baby, Mr. Jones. Everything after that dissolved into silence, a silence so violent it made glass tremble. He walked out of the hospital without a word. By nightfall, every trace of Millie's name had vanished from his city. Her company sold, her penthouse emptied, her guards scattered. No one dared to ask where she went. The streets whispered, Joan's wrath has no witnesses. But power couldn't fix what he had lost. Days blurred, he stopped showing up to meetings. The once immaculate office became a grave of shattered glasses and burned cigars. He sat alone for hours, staring at his blood-stained cuff, the one thing he hadn't thrown away. Sometimes Hannah found him at your bedside in the hospital, motionless, except for the rise and fall of his chest, eyes red from sleepless nights. He never let the nurses remove him. I told you I would protect you. I failed, and I'll never forgive myself. He said it over and over like a prayer meant to punish rather than heal. He had reached for your hand, tracing the lines of your palm with trembling fingers as though trying to memorize you before guilt consumed him entirely. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and lilies, a fragile clinical piece that tried to hold the world together. You sat with the blanket pulled around your knees, fingers curved over the place where the baby had been, as if by touching that hollow you might stitch it back into being. Tears slipped without sound down your face. You didn't bother to catch them. Hannah hovered by the window, shoulders trembling but holding up like the friend she had always been. Chupuk sat in the shadow by the doorway, a silhouette carved from grief and fury. He had not yet come to the bed. He refused to sit where the doctors watched him. His hands were clenched until the knuckles whitened. Hannah moved closer, placing a hand over yours. You cupped your belly as if sheltering an ember. It's not your fault, love. Her voice broke. You glanced at the doorway. Chunguk's face had gone still, an unreadable mask. When he finally crossed the room, his strides were slow and certain as if each step was an oath. He sat and took your free hand in both of his, the touch the only place you felt anchored. He didn't speak at first. He let the machines and the beeping and your ragged breaths fill the room, as though sound could keep him from doing something he might later regret. Then, in a voice so low the walls swallowed it. I promised you the word wine. I promised to keep you safe. You looked at him, searching for reproach, for rage, but found only a hollowed out man with a quiet storm in his eyes. You were not here. I know. He closed his eyes like he could force the memory away, but the memory didn't leave, it transformed into something else. He swallowed, and then, because the doctor had been clear, no stress, no shock, he lied. He picked the lie because it was a shield for you. They told me to wait outside. I had to handle things. You nodded numbly, not asking for more. The truth would have shattered you, so he kept the biggest fracture to himself. That night, when everyone else left and the lights in the corridor dimmed, Chungkook Sat awake alone, he let the week thread itself into a cold, careful plan. He let grief sharpen into a blade. She touched you, and for that the word burned. She spat her poison and smiled, thinking herself untouchable. She forgot the rule of the dark. He found her the way wolves find paper thin mistakes and exposed edge, a careless security, a promise that could be broken. He didn't argue the point, he ended it cleanly, a final line drawn across a chapter that had threatened you. He left no spectacle, no confession, only absence, an absence he engineered the way one might erase a blot of ink until the page looks whole again. I removed the thorn because it bled you, he told himself in the quiet that followed. I watched the city crumble and rebuild it with my hands. She was a lesson, she was a name I wiped from the face of the earth for you, for us. When he returned to the hospital after, his face was pale but steady. He sat down at your bedside and folded his fingers around yours like a man who had given everything and had nothing left to show for it. They said you must not be given pain. The doctor told me no news, no shock. What news? Nothing that matters, nothing for you to carry. You cried, then clutching the empty curve of your belly until your nail hurt. He watched you, and his silence was a punishment he imposed on himself. He would have told you he should have, but some truths are heavy enough to crush someone still trying to breathe. Later, when the city quivered under his wrath, companies closed, Alice warned, a phantom of retribution sweeping through everyone who had once aligned with Millie. No one saw the quiet act that had set it into motion. Millie's name simply stopped being spoken. Her life was folded away in the dark life, a letter burned after reading. That evening, Jungkook sat alone in his office, the skyline a jagged against the night. In the solitary theater of his mind, he confessed his sins, adding a cadence, a lyric to the violence he had just done. I promised her a sky, but I gave her ash. I cut out the road and planted a garden where the poison had grown. If the world needed to burn for her to sleep safe, then let it burn. I will be the flame and the fire both. He imagined a future in which the smoke cleared and you woke whole, asking nothing of the inferno that had protected you. He imagined forgiveness and a thousand apologies carved into stone. He imagined you face and saying two words that made him less monstrous. Forgive me. But he knew on nights like this, when the moon sat like a cold coin over the city, that forgiveness was a luxury he didn't deserve. He had kept the truth because the doctor had begged him to, because his priority in that moment had been you and not his own conscience. He had killed a past that would have killed you. He had, in his own brutal calculus, traded one life for the safety of another. The next morning, you woke to find a photograph on the bedside table. It was your wedding picture, the corners worn where he had pressed his thumbs into the paper over and over. On the back, in his familiar, precise handwriting, he had written one line, an apology, and a vow rolled into a single beat. You took my heart once, wine. Now you have taken my soul. I will burn the word for you. You read it with the same trembling hands that had held your palm. You didn't know the secret he kept, and you didn't know the price he had paid. You only felt the weight of loss and the man beside you who had become both protector and punisher. Jungkook watched you from the window, the city smoke and lights painting his silhouette. In his chest, all the tenderness and all the violence were braided into the same fire certainty. He would let the word cinder to ash for you. He would burn it, rebuild it, and burn it again if that's what it took to keep you breathing. I will be the last thing that hurts you. He promised the dark, if I must become the monster, so you remain the light, then so be it.